Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I'm a 32-year-old female. My husband is 35. We've been married for 5 years now. We used to live with his family for the initial months of our marriage because he did not make enough money to buy his own place back then. And I was also paying for my student loans. During those first months of our marriage, I found out that his family, especially his mother, is not very fond of me. She has pointed it out many times that I'm a slut and undermines her son because of my white heritage and makes him feel ashamed of not being able to earn more. I have never once felt that way about John. I love him for everything that he is, but my mother in law doesn't understand. Eventually, it got to a point I couldn't stand living with her, so I told my husband that I will give the down payment for a house and we need to move out of there. He understood where I was coming from and agreed. We still had family dinners and gatherings since he loves his family. It was his birthday last month, so I decided I wanted to do something special for him. Now, my husband has a decent job of a gym coach at high school, but my PR job at an entertainment company defiantly pays more bills than his. He grew up poor, his parents being the first generation immigrants, so he never really went on a lot of vacations growing up. So this summer, I decided to take them to a trip since they couldn't afford it. I just wanted to make my husband happy by making his parents and two sisters be there for him on the birthday on a vacation. I was aware that they never really liked me and the feelings were mutual, but this summer was about making things better, so I gave it a shot. Turns out that I should not have because when we reached the airport, getting our luggage weighed and very well exceeding the limit I paid for, my mother in law asked me to leave my stuff behind. I refused to do that, for I was the one paying for the whole trip. I told her and my sister in law to pack accordingly, but they still brought their whole closet with them to the airport. I asked her nicely to check if something can be left behind from their luggage since it's so much. And the trip is only of a week to that. And she said if I'm not the one leaving my luggage behind, none of them will go. I was so shocked and enraged at her audacity, but did not want to ruin this for John, as I could see him getting into an argument with his mother and sisters about the unnecessary stuff they brought. I hated doing this, but for his sake, I took one of my bags out of the luggage weight but saw it was exceeding still. So I secretly took one of my sister in law, Gloria's bags, out too. I went to the bathroom to check if there were any essentials in it, like medicines, etc. And in that bag, I found my long lost jewelry, my limited edition KK shades that I convinced myself that I lost, and my engagement ring, for which I even filed a police complaint that it got stolen from my house. I was so shocked looking at all the items in that bag along with some of her things. All I wanted to do was go out and show all this to her mother and ask her to explain this, but then I remembered about all of my missing stuff. I came out of the bathroom, saw them all still arguing over whose bag to pull out next. When I went there, I asked her to get half of her luggage out, and she looked like I asked her to give me her house. When she said no, I asked what is so important in her bags that she can't leave behind. I asked the same questions from the sisters and looked at Gloria. She noticed her bag in my hands and started to avoid her eyes. I said, let's check out what is so important, and opened the bag. My suspicion was right. There is my dress and LV clutch between those crappy clothes. I looked up and asked whose bag it was. Turns out it was other sister in law's bag. The band of thieves, I told myself. I looked at my husband and showed him the stuff I worried over for months laying in his sister's bags. He looked embarrassed, but then got mad at me for embarrassing his family in front of everyone at the airport. He said I could keep it in till we were home to let it out and that I just caused drama. I got so mad at this statement of his that I threw all the plans of a family trip and birthday party out the window and told them all to go back because I am not paying for their trip anymore. I took my luggage and went to the trip. It did bother me for first few days, but then I did enjoy the trip I paid for. It's 3 months after the trip. My husband John and I have been having fights since that day. He said he was so disappointed in me after that day because I went on the trip by myself after humiliating his family in front of the strangers. I told him, how else did he expect me to react to his sister stealing my stuff? We have had countless disagreements after that. I came back from the trip after a week and did not talk to him because he thought I caused whatever happened that day in the airport. We did not talk to each other for a few days, but he eventually sat me down and told me he was sorry for blaming me, but that I knew how his family is, so I should have been the bigger person and acted out rationally. And he was very hurt by the fact that I went alone, missing his birthday, which then he celebrated at his parents' house with his thief sisters and crook mother. First, we made up by talking and agreed that I no longer need to include them in our lives. But he's a family man, and he still went to family dinners and their birthdays without me when I refused to go. My mother in law apparently wants to apologize for what happened and wants me to come for dinner to fix the situation. Despite John and I agreeing to let me be free from his family, started blaming me for not trying to fix it when his mother and sisters are ready to apologize. Last night, I had a huge fight with John regarding this, which ended up in him leaving the house and saying he will come back when I'm ready to accept his family, since I don't really need him to support me, as he earns way too less anyway. These were my mother in law's words. She finally got to his head and is now breaking our marriage. I don't know what to do. After John left the house, I tried to talk to him, but he refuses to understand me. I was so miserable without him, but then I fell sick at work and went to the hospital where they call John as he is my husband, and I am 5 weeks pregnant. John seemed very happy, and all the bad air between us seemed to be gone for the moment. On the car ride home, I asked him if he could come back home because I miss him so much. He told me that he would come back home for me and the baby, and that we will try to work on our relationship for our baby. He moved back in last week, and I cannot be any happier. His family has been trying their hardest to get to me, though. As soon as they found out that I'm carrying their first grandchild, they forgot all the things they disliked about me, my job, my ethnicity, and started apologizing for everything they have done till now. My sisters even did as much as to come to my house and apologize for stealing my things, though their apology did not seem sincere. Their mother probably made them apologize so she can get to be with the baby when it's born. I told them that it doesn't matter to me anymore and they can keep the things they've stolen from the house. They might be my husband's family, but they are not welcomed at my house anymore. John defiantly did not like the way things went with her sisters, but he did not tell me otherwise because he knew I was fed up with it and want absolutely no involvement with any of them in my life anymore. It was my baby shower gender reveal this afternoon, where I invited my and John's close friends and colleagues to celebrate. We talked about his family, and he told me how bad they wanted to come and be present in the special moment, but I refused. I told him I want no part on them, and I still meant it. He was disappointed, but did not force me to do anything. I was totally against that. At the gender reveal, we had beautiful white frosting cake, which would tell us our baby's gender. I'm so happy to tell you guys that we're having a baby boy and are so excited for it. I was so happy at the party when I spotted my mother-in-law and father-in-law with loads of gifts in their hands. I was furious and went to my husband to ask why did he invite them after me specifically telling him not to. He said he did not invite them, and then he went to talk to them. I watched as he talked to his father, who looked furious at not being invited. His mother walked towards me, held both my hands, and with teary eyes, she said she was so very sorry for the way she acted towards me from the start, and that she was so embarrassed for what her daughters had done. She said she hasn't been a great mother-in-law, but from now on she will try to be, and begged me to give her a second chance to be in her son's and grandson's life. I grew up without my mom and always tried my best to treat her like one, but she never accepted me. Hearing her say those words made me weak, and I accepted her apology. I thought it would be better to bring a child in a loving family who can resolve the issues, and I knew John wanted his family to be in on his son's life. You did the right thing. They had to not steal your things, and your husband should have supported you rather than his sisters. It's good that the mother-in-law apologized to you, and it sounds genuine. So nice of you to accept her apology after what she and her daughters did to you. Dad, 52 male, married a young girl, 30, 2 years ago. I 16 female, have an elder brother, 27 male, a sister, 22, and a younger half sibling, 1 male. My siblings and I are super close. Mom's not here anymore. My brother moved back home for a few months to save for a place. He and my stepmom don't get along really well because she has tried to boss him around and he just doesn't listen. She also doesn't like that he spoils me so much because that's not how my dad is raising me. My dad has told her to stay out of our relationship many times, but she doesn't listen. My brother and I have the kind of relationship and trust to always mess around, do pranks, fake wrestling, and all of that. For some context, my brother is huge, but he has never hurt me before, and I don't think he ever will. I get that the way my brother and I talk or behave might look as disrespect to someone outside the relationship, but he's okay with this. My sister is just the same with him, and even our dad is aware of this and respects that this is how my brother lets us treat him. As I said, it's just trust. However, my stepmom is super invasive, always telling me, don't call him that. Don't say that. That's not cool. That's hurtful. Say sorry and blah, blah, blah. Yesterday, my brother was working in the kitchen while my stepmom made dinner, and I just sneaked behind him and jumped on his back. As I said, my brother is huge. He lifts weights. To a 125-pound girl, jumping on his back is no big deal. He took me by the arms and lightly twisted me to lock me in place and tell me to surrender. We were laughing, but my stepmom came to us and began telling him to let me go and that he was hurting me. While trying to take his arms off me, I just sighed and said, just shut up and leave us alone. She looked surprised and just went to her room until Dad came home. My brother didn't say anything as if it didn't happen, and later on, my dad came to my room to talk, but just said it wasn't cool how I expressed my feelings, but also didn't make a big fuss of it. However, she's now ignoring me. Your stepmom needs to back off. You're all too old for her to try and mother any of you. NTA. NTA. Just flat out NTA. I'd never be able to take her seriously, especially since she's just 3 years older than my brother. If I was your brother, an adult, I would be mad at her too for trying to tell me what to do with my own sibling. Your stepmom entered this family dynamic when you and your siblings already had an established routine, and she wants to try to change everything? No, she wants to boss around a grown adult man just because she has the title of stepmom. No, just no. She needs to stay out of you and your siblings' relationship. Sounds like her stepmom title went to her head. You're NTA. I'm a 16-year-old male. I got step siblings, 18 female, 17 female, and 15 male. My dad married their mom when I was 8. About a month before they got married, which is when they became engaged, they sat the 4 of us down and asked for us to give our blessing on the marriage. My step siblings all did and were eager for it to happen. I was not. All 4 of us lost our other parent before that point. Their dad died about 3 to 4 years before that point, and my mom had died 2 years before. At this time, Dad asked me why, and I said it was all too fast for me and I wasn't ready for a new family to come in and take over what used to be us and Mom. They told me my reason wasn't good enough, and they were ready and I would thank them one day. They have talked forever about how special our family is because we chose to be a family, we got to pick our family, etc. I have told my dad and his wife both how much it bothers me when they say it like that because I hadn't chosen this. They told me I would come to understand with time. It's been 8 years. I don't feel different than I did 8 years ago. I didn't choose them, and honestly, I likely wouldn't choose them if I had a choice. They all like to ignore the fact I said what I did and instead say all 4 of us kids agreed and were excited for the wedding. Even my step siblings will say I chose them and they chose me. Only half of that is true. My dad and his wife celebrated 8 years married with some family. Everyone else was having a good time, but I was annoyed hearing all about how we were family by choice and how we chose each other, so I spoke up. I said everyone else chose, but that I had said no when asked, and I was told my reasons weren't good enough, so they'd choose for me. I said, I understand I didn't get to dictate my dad's life, and that's fine, but the least they could do is not lie and say, I chose this marriage and family. The mood soured. My grandparents could not believe Dad had dismissed me way back then and then talked about how happy I was about it. My dad, his wife, and my step siblings said I spoiled a happy family moment with my outburst, and that makes me childish and mean. AITA? NTA, for an emotionally difficult problem, you have a pretty accurate view of it. I think if they'd shut up about the choice thing, you'd have let them have their happy marriage. But going on and on about it suggests they're overcompensating, and it's not fair to drag you into it and lie about your feelings. That's hurtful and selfish. They're constructing a narrative that makes them look better without regard for how it makes you feel. Telling the truth was the right thing to do. It made them uncomfortable, but they deserved it. Maybe now they'll think twice about dragging you into the happy chosen family story. I think if they'd left the room for your feelings instead of dismissing them and trying to pretend them out of existence, you'd be happier for them. As it stands, the message they're sending is our marriage is more important than you. And that's obviously not okay. And of course, you would have a hard time being content with it. They really are being a-holes about the whole thing. NTA, you are close to the adult world, but you're still a child, figuring out the real world and how to navigate the shared living experiences. When you stated your feelings on the matter, they were dismissed. You have tried to be honest and forward with how you feel, and therapy should have been a part of creating your blended family, both to deal with the huge change together, but also to give you the tools for coping and healing. Also, the access to support you weren't receiving at home. Bring this up to your dad. Let him know you wouldn't change his happiness for anything, but to build your relationship with your new family, some professional help could go a long way to making everyone happier. NTA, they've been ignoring your feelings about this and lying to outsiders about it. That's not a healthy family dynamic. Ignoring reality if you don't like it. Might the parents be willing to do family counseling with you?